Chapter 9. The Northeasterner. A week had passed since they had entered the factory floor. The landlord had his workers working on the new space. Nathaniel and Michelle went to see how their progress was going. The landlord was standing beside the large double doors. He smiled when he saw them. "There are my little heroes." "We didn't do anything," humbly Michelle replied. He pointed at the open factory floor that was now clear of the dust, cobwebs, and large, heavy sewing machines. The workmen were refurnishing the floors, bringing out the luster and beauty of the heavy maple floorboards. "What did you do with the heavy machinery?" "We saw a flatbed truck take them away the other day." Nathaniel seeing how much the space had changed so much already. "I was able to sell them to several different museums around the country. I made so much I gave your father a finder's fee of free rent for half a year." The landlord answered, "Wow, that's nice. Thank you." Nathaniel appreciated the landlord's offer. "Without his debunking all the ghost stories about her and Mr. Cretan, my workmen would still be too afraid to work on the additional apartments on the top floor and the factory floor. With the new recreation center, I now have a waiting list on tenants. 6 months is the least I could do." The landlord placed a hand on Nathaniel's shoulder. "Did you go to the Mr. Cretan's office box that overlooked the floor?" Michelle asked. "Yes, we found a safe." "A safe?" asked Nathaniel. "What I found in the safe is paying for all the improvements and more. Perhaps then a year's free rent is more appropriate," Nathaniel suggested. The landlord took away his hand. "I'll think about it." He changed the subject. "With the recreation center finished, it won't be. Not for boys anymore. I think you will enjoy the space greatly, Nathan." That following weekend, Nathaniel and Michelle were visiting the Millers. They were showing them the before and after pictures of the factory floor. It was amazing how much the workers had changed and improved the space with the renovations. My, Nana Miller looked at the before photos. "After all these generations, we finally know what those girls were making." "Makes sense it would be something that today we would think is not a good thing," added Michelle. "How is that?" Nana Miller asked. "Killing whales, to use their bones, so they could force and bind women to shape themselves to please men." "I don't think you understand women," Grandpa Miller said. "Women do not dress to please men." "What do you mean?" Michelle asked. "He's right, my dear." Nana Miller agreed. "Women dress to please other women. Think of yourself when you dress. Do you worry what the boys will think of what you're wearing or the other girls?" Michelle thought about it. The other girls. Men are just happier girls. If you wore nothing, we'd be pleased. Grandpa Miller honestly added, smiling at Nana Miller. Nathaniel laughed at Grandpa Miller's off-colored comment. A little upset, Michelle looked sternly at Nathaniel. "Is that true?" "I plead the fifth." Nathaniel tried to hold back his grin. "Not wishing to send you home, but there is a Northeasterner heading our way." Grandpa Miller changed the subject, saving Nathaniel from Michelle's disappointment in him. "Yeah, we should go. I heard about it coming on the news this morning." Nathaniel agreed. "What's a Northeasterner?" Michelle asked, forgetting her displeasure with Nathaniel. "It is a major storm that blows in from the North Atlantic," Nana Miller explained. "Lots of freezing rain and powerful winds. In the past, they would lead to the river overflowing its banks. You two should head home before it starts." Walking off the front porch of the Millers' home, Nathaniel felt a drop of rain on his face. He looked up at the source of the raindrop. The sky had darkened greatly during their time at the Millers. More raindrops hit his face. "I suggest we hurry home. It seems the storm is here." It started downpouring. It was so hard it was as if someone above turned on a water faucet. The winds began to blow with such force that Nathaniel noticed the roots of the large old oak tree being tugged to the surface and beginning to break through the soil. They rushed to the main road, which by the time they reached it was already covered with an inch of fast-moving water. Their feet splashed with each step as they ran back to their side of the road. By the time they did reach the entrance of their building, they were both soaking wet. "I think I will go straight home and take a hot bath," stated Michelle, as she tried to wring out her water-drenched clothing. That came out of nowhere. Nathaniel looked up at the dark storm clouds and the extremely heavy rain pouring down from the heavens. He noticed that the runoff was already filling up the river. He would guess that the water level of the river had risen several inches in only a few minutes. "After you shower, do you want to watch the storm from my corner room?" Smiling, "I'll be quick," she replied. "Meet you at your place." 2 hours had passed, and Michelle was with Nathaniel in his room, watching the storm that was not letting up. It was clearly getting stronger and fiercer. The gutters along the road became small streams filling up the river. From his northern window, they could see the old oak tree near the miller's home, bending to its breaking point towards the miller's house. Looking out the east window, towards the water wheel, the waters were rushing down the engorged river with such force they were putting a strain on the vines holding the water wheel. The wheel is struggling to move. Nathaniel noticed walking closer to the east window. "Do you think it's going to break free?" Michelle was nervous if it did. Even though the machines on the factory floor had been removed, she still imagined a ghostly vision of the floor once again with the heavy machines and the spirits of the girls tending to them. Night had fallen, darkening the sky even more so. A flash of lightning struck nearby, lighting the sky and startling both of them. The lights in the whole building went out. Checking across the street to the miller's home, it had gone completely dark. They could no longer see it. Michelle grabbed hold of Nathaniel's left arm. Everything was dark. They could only see the water wheel struggling from time to time with the flashes of more lightning. A knock came to the door. Michelle tightened her grip. The door slowly opened. "You kids all right?" Nathaniel's stepmom walked in with candles. She placed one candle on Nathaniel's table near the window. Nathaniel's dad entered with more candles. "Isn't this romantic?" He smiled. "Do you mind if I sleep over?" asked Michelle. "I don't feel like walking the stairs in the dark." "She can use my bed." Nathaniel looked at his dad. "I can sleep on the floor with my bedroll." "Sure, just call your parents to let them know." Nathaniel's dad replied. Feeling the sun on his face, Nathaniel woke up on the floor. He first checked his bed, seeing that Michelle was still sleeping. The storm had passed. Birds could be heard singing outside. Standing, he approached the east window to check on the water wheel. The skies were a clear blue as the sun rose just above the tree line. He turned his eyes down to the river and followed the engorged, rapidly flowing water to the water wheel, expecting to see it freed and spinning once again. As the wheel did pull to be freed, Mother Nature was still holding the old wheel in place. Nathaniel gave a sigh of relief, not really understanding why he still feared the idea of the water wheel set free. He realized his feelings were not rational. Searching his deepest thoughts, he questioned why he wanted so much. In this case, for nature to be able to control this one old machine of industry. The water wheel. Did it make him feel comforted that there was still a greater force? Something beyond us keeping everything safe? He wasn't sure, but the vines still held the wheel tightly. "Is it moving?" Michelle waking. He turned, seeing her sitting up in his bed, stretching her arms. "No, the wheel is still locked tight by those vines. I really thought that storm was going to set it free. I was worried it would. Good that it didn't." She smiled. "Is the power still out?" Nathaniel looked at his ceiling lamp. He hadn't shut it off last night, yet was not on. "It seems to be." He walked over to the light switch near his door and flicked it on and off to be sure. "Yup, still no power. I'm sure they'll do the town before they get to us." Well, if they lost power too. Michelle stood up, looking out the east window at the river and the water wheel. "Those vines are a lot stronger than I thought they were." Nathaniel turned to look towards her. My God. Michelle, frightened by his outburst, looked at him. His expression was as if he was staring at a ghost. What's wrong? Nathaniel pointed to the north window. The old oak tree. Michelle looked out the north window that overlooked the miller's home, on the hill, across the main road. The storm had uprooted the old oak tree. Its heavy weight had smashed down onto the miller's house. It hit with such force that the roof was caved in, destroying the front section of the second floor of the house. Grandpa and Nana Miller. Rushing across the street, police, fire engines, and an ambulance arrived just before them. The police prevented them from climbing the hill to the house as first responders rushed up the hill into the house. The Millers' children and grandchildren also arrived. They all impatiently waited, worrying the worst had happened. That's the main bedroom. The oldest son looked up at where the tree had fallen in. 2 paramedics came out of the house with a gurney. Strapped onto it was Grandpa Miller, badly banged up, his legs in splints. They all rushed to his side as the paramedics readied to load him into the ambulance. Monsters. I told you about those monsters. Grandpa Miller asked the paramedics to wait before loading him into the ambulance. He waved Michelle to come closer to him. Michelle went to him and took the hand he reached out to her. Did you get the dress? Grandpa Miller asked her. The dress? She asked. Yes, the dress. Nana asked me to leave it for you at your door for the Halloween party. I forgot to ask if you got it. She wanted to be sure you got it. Yes, Grandpa Miller, I got it. It fit me perfectly. He smiled. I am glad. She will be glad to know that. He released her hand as the paramedics lifted him into the back of the ambulance. The ambulance sped off with its lights flashing and siren blaring. Michelle looked up at the house. What of Nana Miller? Is she okay? Nana. One of the granddaughters questioned her. Yes, Nana Miller, your grandmother. Nathaniel was also worried and was confused by the granddaughter's indifference. Tisha, we need to go to the hospital to be with Granddad. Her father called out to her. Wait. Nathaniel stopped her from leaving. What do you mean? Aren't you worried about Nana Miller? The teenage girl was shocked by his question. Nana was killed a few years ago in that freak tractor accident when she ran into one of the orchard trees. It is why Grandpa cursed the trees from that day on. The end.